I think this clock is off. Your clock says 6:30. It's good. Good evening. Welcome to the City Council regular meeting. I am calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:30. Please stand and join me for the flag salute. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please take roll call?
Councilmember Hernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McLean-LeJean.
Here.
And Mayor Perez.
Here. Tonight's inspiration will be given by myself, and I forgot about it tonight, so I had to do a quick research on what could be an inspiration. So my inspiration tonight comes from something I experienced this weekend, my first 10K, and I was not ready for running a 10K. I'm maybe at 4 miles without my body deciding we're done. But I ran my first 10K, and it was quite difficult. It was actually really, really painful and really difficult. So my inspiration tonight is for runners. Runners embody the essence of perseverance, pushing boundaries, and chasing dreams with every step. Their dedication to the journey, the passion they bring to the track or field or wherever they run, and the resilience they display in overcoming challenges inspire us all to strive for greatness in our own pursuits. And I know I was surrounded by so many people that were just joyful to be there, and it was quite dreadful for me. So I do not understand the runner's high or how people can enjoy running, but I'm going to try and keep pushing my body to keep running. So that's my inspiration. We will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. This process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
We do. We'll start with Becky Bruning and followed by Paul Copley.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and staff. I'm here tonight representing Real Guppy Outdoors. We had a fantastic weekend. We had 15 $10 a month pledges made. We had a couple of $100 pledges made, which we really needed. And we are having our fundraiser dinner on May 19th. I do have tickets with me tonight if anybody's interested in buying them. They are $60 a person or $600 for a table of 10. I also have our sponsorship pamphlets if anybody's interested in looking at one of those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Copley.
Good evening, Mayor Perez, esteemed city council members and staff. My name is Paul Copley, and I'm the founder of the Ventura County Voting Reform Project. I'm here tonight to talk about what the city of Port Hueneme can do to fend off an expensive and frivolous lawsuit. The city of Port Hueneme elects its city council using a plurality at large system. What this means is that every voter gets 1 vote for every available seat. Now, while this might seem like a logical and well thought out system, in reality it allows for the majority to completely dominate any minority groups. As long as they have 51% of the votes, they're able to control 100% of the seats. Because of this, the California Voting Rights Act has made it illegal to use plurality at large elections in most circumstances. Every city in Ventura County, with the exception of Port Hueneme, has transitioned to district-based elections in the last few years as a result of a CVRA threat letter. While many of the cities were not actually in violation of the CVRA, it is often more expensive to fight these bogus allegations than to simply concede to the attorney's demands. The most common solution is to transition to single winner district-based elections, and this is what has been implemented across the county. However, at the end of last year, the state Supreme Court specifically outlined another method, proportional ranked choice voting. For many cities and protected groups, single winner districts are not a good solution. PRCV provides a much better solution. It allows cities to continue conducting at-large elections, but does so in a way that prevents majorities from dominating and satisfies the requirements of the CVRA. For the record, I do not believe that Port Hueneme is in violation of the CVRA, but unfortunately, that doesn't matter. You will get your letter just like every other city in Ventura County has. Port Hueneme has the opportunity to act in a preventative measure, protect itself against frivolous and costly lawsuits, and ensure it is in full compliance with the CVRA. And it virtually guarantees that no legitimate attorney will seek to sue the city. If you want to wait until after the threat letter arrives to take actions, your options become severely limited. I strongly urge the City Council to put a discussion of proportional ranked choice voting on its next agenda and invite either myself or another representative from my organization to deliver to the City Council a presentation on PRCV, how it works, its many benefits for the city of Port Hueneme, and the options for implementing it in a timely, effective, and costly manner. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. My contact information is on the statement that you've all been provided. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Greg Ross.
Hi, good evening. Esteemed City Council, thank you for your service. Thank you for listening. This is my second time presenting. A little update. We live in the close to the shore, Surfside area, 139 Sea Spray Way. I've been a Ventura County resident since the 1970, and a Port Hueneme resident since the early 1990s. So, without wasting your time, I have a fun story to tell you. I was in the jacuzzi with my daughter, my granddaughter, this afternoon, and she says, "Where are you going tonight?" I said, "I'm going to a city council meeting." "Well, what happens?" I said, "Well, these are people that care about the city of Port Hueneme, and they run the city." And she said, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, because they want to make the city better." She said, "Well, that's wonderful. This is a 3-year-old. It was great." And she's right. So a quick update. We're concerned about the amount of pollution that's coming from the port. And I'm here to tell you, first of all, transparency, we don't have any science yet, but we're getting closer. We do have a video that I don't want to waste your time with. That was taken on March 25th of this year. It was a roll-on, roll-off, row-row boat that was had its engines on because of all of the problems at the port. We understand that. And it was spewing a lot of black diesel particulate matter. It's a concern to us. We still don't have our science yet, but we're working on it. We're getting closer, and that science is important because coming to you with these updates that aren't really anything of any actual substance is seemingly a little bit of a waste of your time, but we want just to make you aware. We do know that the website at the port with the 2 pollution monitoring systems that they have, one at Haycox Elementary and one at the port itself, are up and running. They found the spider in the pollution monitoring device at the port. So it's now up and running, and you can go on their website. I got an email from Giles from the port, and you can actually see what's going on, and it's good news. We're concerned more about our community, which is a pretty high density of people. So that's our update. I will send you the video, Mr. Vega, and we'll go from there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Randall Thomas.
And Mayor, just quickly, if I could note, I know we can't debate public comments, but At the last council meeting, the council did adopt the goals for this year in working and collaborating with the port, and there were green port initiatives on there. So we are already reaching out to the port to start talking about those, and the port was receptive to that first conversation. So we plan to have some to keep working on that throughout the year. So.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, city staff, and members of the public. I am here to speak about the presentation the port's going to give. I would just like to say that I'm very glad that they're here. Yep, they're still here. So I'm very glad that they're here. I'm very excited to see what the port's going to present to the community. I'm glad that it's in an area where it can definitely be recorded and watched constantly so people can go back to the information that the port's going to present. And I'm just want to hope that whatever the port presents in terms of their growth aspects and their future goals is that it also includes the city of Port Hueneme significantly and how it can not just benefit the port but the city and the communities within, because all of us working together is how we build a better place to live in aggregate, not just for today but for 10 and 20 and 30 years down the line. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
And Jan Burke.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Port representatives, and neighbors. I want to thank the Port for coming today to give a presentation. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm here on behalf of the Hueneme HOA Coalition to express our concerns about the relationship between the Port and the city. We're here to ask the Port and the city to begin rebuilding and forging a positive and meaningful working relationship that is much more collaborative. It is critical that we work together to find the right balance for the proposed strategic plan that will mutually benefit our port, our city, and your neighbors. As we rebuild a cohesive partnership, we ask that you consider the following objectives. Encourage collaborative participation that includes input from stakeholders of your host city. Listen to the concerns of the community you work in. Develop good stewardship and good neighbor policies, not just public relation optics. Satisfy the community's need, requirements relating to economic inputs, quality of life, infrastructure, and safety. Recognize the port and city interdependence and build meaningful community support and stronger economic relations that will realize a long-term success. Encourage debate that challenge actions that are deemed not to be in the best interest of the city or the majority, and work for the change where change is needed. Our port is a specialty niche port. Our city is a unique city. Forbes states that niche providers can provide far more potential and more profit with less. It differentiates your operation and leaves no doubt in what you stand for, with services delivered with genuine conviction. People will trust and pay more for that expert knowledge delivering products and services. As the owner of a niche company, I can attest to this statement from Forbes, and we have been successful for 50 years. Bigger is not always better. We envision a small, successful, and environmentally clean niche port working with a small, beautiful beach host city. A smart and significant competitive advantage, providing less impact and greater economic benefits for Hueneme and a sustainable future for all stakeholders. We ask that you come together to do unique and great things as only our port and our city can do. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda approval for City Council. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
The Conflict of Interest and Levine Act disclosures. Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to presentations. The first presentation is the quarterly employee recognition given by Deputy City Manager Charles Peretz.
So tonight is the latest installment of our quarterly recognition of employees for their years of service. To my left, tonight we are honoring Aaron Wedemeyer, our Information Technology Manager, for his 20 years of service with the city. Aaron was hired on March 25th, 2004, and initially held the title of MIS Manager. Aaron told me he was thrilled when he started with the city, and he couldn't wait to share the information about his new job and his new title with all friends and family. Aaron told me that during this exciting time, it was a valued family member who was also a Port Hueneme resident who looked at his business card, which again said MIS Manager, and asked him, "What is it exactly that you mismanage?" Well, fortunately for Aaron, during his career in the city, his title changed. So first, it changed to Information Systems and Technology Manager, and then ultimately to his current title of Information Technology Manager, so simplified. When asked what he likes best about working for the city, Aaron says that he enjoys working with such a friendly staff. He knows nearly everybody that works for the city by their first name. When asked about his favorite moment in his work career, Aaron gave me 2 examples. First, he said it was the day that former city manager Bob Hunt hired him and offered him the job. And the second one, which is I think telling about who Aaron is as an employee, was the day that the HTE, our former ERP system, was implemented. And this is cited because it was something outside of Aaron's comfort zone, something he had never done a project like that before, and he really relished the challenge and the opportunity to take it on and was really pleased with that accomplishment. Lastly, when asked if there was anything else Aaron would like to share, he noted that he and his wife share an important connection, the loyalty and dedication to their employers. His wife is about to celebrate 34 years working with her employer, Lockheed. She's already celebrated 34. She's almost at 35 with her employer, Lockheed Martin, and that'll happen later this year. So please join me in congratulating Aaron on 20 years of service with Port Hueneme. Thank you.
We have a certificate signed by all council members, a certificate of recognition that states in recognition of your hard work and dedication of 20 years with the city of Port Hueneme, your devotion to the city is inspiring. Your longevity and loyalty are recognized and appreciated. Your contribution leaves a footprint on the city of Port Hueneme and is the city council's honor to recognize your service.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Number 2 presentation for tonight is the Autism Acceptance Proclamation. And I'll go ahead and read unless someone else wants to do the honor. You want to read? Okay. Read by Councilmember Gama.
I look forward to this night because I get to wear my autism awareness tie. It's a puzzle. And so here we go. Autism Acceptance Month, April 2024. Whereas April is designated as Autism Acceptance Month, and whereas autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, represents a broad group of disorders and vary widely from mild to severe and is characterized by difficulty with social interaction, communication, severely limited interest, and repetitive behaviors. And whereas the lifelong nature of ASD and other developmental disabilities require a variety of types of assistance at different points in an individual's life. And whereas our understanding of autism has grown tremendously since it was first diagnosed, as there is no known cure for autism. Early diagnosis and the resulting appropriate education and intervention are vital to the future growth and development of the individual. And whereas a variety of public and private organizations and agencies strive to provide quality care support or services to children and adults with ASD to enable them to live as independently as possible and to reach their full potential. And whereas hope lies in a broad spectrum of treatments and in an informed public and community committed to providing support and service to individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders. And whereas the Port Hueneme Police Department will wear patches and pins as an outward expression of an inner commitment to connect with our community, to create acceptance and support those dealing with lifelong neurological disorder. And whereas we join the Autism Society of Ventura County in proclaiming April 2024 as Autism Acceptance Month. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Port Hueneme hereby recognizes and proclaims April 2024 as Autism Acceptance Month.
Thank you.
Just a few words. On behalf of the Board of Directors and staff at Autism Society of Ventura County, it is my honor to accept this proclamation for Autism Acceptance Month. ASVC has a very active and diverse Board of Directors. One of our board members, Velia Soto, is here with me tonight. And the month of April is not only dedicated to awareness, understanding, and acceptance, but is also to celebrating the diverse minds and talents that individuals on the autism spectrum bring into our lives. The autistic mind contributes so much to our world and to our communities. We invite you all to Ought to Run at CSUCI on April 28th, the largest autism celebration on the West Coast, and you can learn about it at oughttorun.org. Autism affects 1 in 36 in the United States, according to recent estimates from CDC. This statistic underscores the urgency of our mission. It is not a distant reality, but one that touches many of our own community. In Ventura County, as in many places across the nation, people with autism and their families navigate a world that is often underprepared to meet their needs. From challenges in education and employment to difficulties in accessing healthcare and community services, their world is full of barriers, and it is a path we are committed to transforming. This month, we celebrate the strides we have made towards an inclusive society. Autism Society of Ventura County is filled with pride and joy that the City of Port Hueneme recently added the word inclusive into its city council goals. Without prompting, other cities have followed. Thank you, Port Hueneme, for being a leader in building inclusive policy. Autism Society of Ventura County and its advocacy committee will continue to push for policies that ensure individuals on the spectrum have access to quality education, meaningful employment, and comprehensive health care. We advocate for environments that are inclusive and celebrate differences. And most importantly, we must foster a community that listens and values to the voices of autistic individuals themselves. As we move forward, let us remember that acceptance is not merely about tolerance. It is about active engagement, understanding, and support. It is about recognizing the potential in every person, regardless of how they experience the world. Thank you for standing with us today and every day as we work towards a world where every person on the autism spectrum can live fully. We value and respect your community members and all who are embraced who they are. For more information about our programs and services, please visit us at autismventura.org, or you can reach out to me at advocacy@autismventura.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was going to take it home. No, just kidding. Hi, Valia.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Tonight, we will now recess to the city council. We'll recess the city council meeting and call. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Number 3 is the State of Port presentation by Kristen Dekas, the CEO and Port Director of the Port of Hueneme.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. It's a privilege to be before you this evening. This is our annual address to the City Council where we deliver a state of the port, give some updates of what's going on, and look for opportunities for collaboration. As you know, when we were in Washington, City Council member Mr. Martinez and Mayor Perez, we went with this this slogan, if you will: there is no commerce without community, and there's no community without commerce. And it's I think very telling and true, and I think we have a lot to do to work together and have exciting times ahead. So with that, I'll kick off and just kind of go into what's going on at the port. One, I'd like to introduce the president of our board, the first Latino to actually serve as president of our board, Selena Zacharias. She's with us this evening. Awesome. Yes.
Congratulations.
I also have staff with me tonight. If there are questions on our finances, our CFO, Austin, is here, Austin Yang, and Letitia Austin is with us, our head of our government relations program and team. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have after this presentation. But as a quick reminder, we are governed by 5 elected harbor commissioners, and our goal is not to become a rich port. We don't collect any money from the taxpayer. The money that comes into the port comes through the private sector and our customers. And our goal is to enrich our community by having access to the global stage for trade. So many of our customers may be profit-driven. We're not. We're here to make enough money to reinvest in the port so we can be a strategic global player in international markets, but at for the purpose of creating economic and social good for our community. Here's some WOW stats. So if you're in the backyard of LA and Long Beach, a lot of people don't realize our play in global trade. We actually move about $16+ billion worth of cargo. We're the #1 West Coast port for banana trade, and actually #2 in the nation. #6 for containers on the West Coast. #5, I love this stat. This is new. I just learned this in a new study. We're #5 for total refrigerated cargo in the country, moving more refrigerated cargo than the Port of Long Beach. So that's a fun statistic. We're #16 in the United States for containers, #6 for cars, and the top 10% of the nation's seaports. So this is really your port that's going to work doing all this great business internationally, creating lots of opportunity for our community. In terms of how our performance is going, we are moving ahead very strong. We've realized about 80% increases in volume over the last decade, and revenue is up about 133% since 2012. So we brought in new business, and we're seeing the rewards of those successes, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. Looking at a glimpse of fiscal year 24, you can see here that our auto business is really rebounding. If you recall, during COVID, it was pretty expensive to buy a car because of the semiconductor chips, so there was a real shortage in supply, and we're seeing that all recalibrate inventories build back up, and that segment of our portfolio is doing very well. Like other ports in the country, we are seeing a little bit of a dip in the container trade, but for us, it really isn't so much what's happening in the economy where consumers are spending more money on travel and services as opposed to goods out of Asia and Amazon and that sort of thing. We're actually experiencing some of this downturn, which isn't too steep, but due to weather in the tropics and the areas where we get our bananas and our blueberries. So they've suffered a little bit due to droughts as well as floods, and so we're seeing the size of bananas smaller, so there's less containers of bananas, and then the blueberry business has been impacted as well. So we're expecting weather to get back to normal, and hopefully those we'll see some returns in the container business recover a little bit there. In terms of our overall play in the economy here in Ventura County, trade and transportation strongly outperforms the overall economy of Ventura County. So we're very important to the economic health of our county. And just to kind of talk a little bit about our strategic plan, we're hoping to adopt this by the end of this fiscal year. We've been working on this for 4 years. We've had a lot of public meetings, charrettes, open, transparent processes. And we are looking to adopt it probably in July or June of this year. And these are our strategic pillars. So it's economic vitality, infrastructure, environment, community, and innovation. And I'll touch quickly on each of these and provide an update to the council. So in terms of economic prosperity, when the port does well, we see dividends come back in terms of jobs, tax revenues to communities, and economic activity. Overall economic activity is actually up 150% with our growth. Job creation's up 144%, and tax revenue is up 224%. And City Council Member Hernandez, I know you've asked me to get the economist in front of me, and I will make that happen. I know I owe you that, so we'll make it happen. This is the economic impacts in terms of revenues coming directly to the city of Port Hueneme from the businesses that work at the port. This is the type of revenue you generate in terms of taxes outside any other revenues that are coming in through the seaport. In terms of job creation here locally, drilled down to direct jobs, we employ close to 3,500 people through the port customers or the port itself. And I think it's important to note that about 12% of all the jobs at the port are for residents of this fine city. So very important to, and these are good paying jobs, high paying jobs, good quality of life paying jobs. So important stats in terms of providing for our community. To touch on a little bit of, I wanted to speak to partnership a little bit and the revenue sharing agreements and kind of speak to some of the revenues that you'll be seeing in the future. And what is this all about? So these revenue sharing agreements that we have also foster positive relationships with the city by you providing all these wonderful services for our port, from public works, road maintenance, traffic signs, landscaping, tree trimming, lifeguard services, infrastructure upgrades, police patrolling services, park renovation, storm drain management, lights and fencing, all really important services that we get from the revenue sharing agreements that we have with the city. So to spell these out in terms of some of the real dollars that are coming into the general fund of Port Hueneme through the revenue sharing agreements, you can see they're broken into 4 different contracts, 3 revenue sharing agreements and a settlement agreement. And over the last, how many years is it, Austin? Since it's been since 1983, it's 40 years, it's produced about $36 million in revenues for the city, and this is the breakout by each individual agreement. I think we're forecasting next fiscal year about $2.9 million going into the city's budget from the revenues of the port and our successes there. So great mutual partnership. The good news is when we do well, you do well. So when port car goes up, city revenue goes up. So we have 67% growth in cargo, city revenue goes up 116%. So when we do well, as the kind of first slide said, the city does well, and it's a wonderful partnership. We also have our community benefit fund, as you well know, and we'll be meeting, I want to say, on the 16th to discuss the upcoming next year of how to make the investment with the community benefit fund. Just a quick reminder there, if we make more than $13 million in revenue, $100,000 goes into the bank for the city and the port to come together and strategically decide on good projects to invest in that are of mutual benefit to the city and the port. So we'll be working on the next round, and we've done some good work in the past. I think this is a video from this year's Lego First event where we had 1,500 high school students come out, and $5,000 from the CBF supported that event hosted at the port. So just really good stuff that we can do to uplift our community and create opportunities through the CBF fund. This just shows you just a snapshot of, it is significant funding. We're second in line from property taxes in terms of the money that goes into the general fund. So if you look here, this fiscal year 2023 is about 10.3% of your general fund is being furnished by the city, and that's second to your property taxes. We also have the opportunity to really work on grants together. This is a snapshot of the FEMA grants. I thank you all, that Mayor and Councilmember Martinez, that came to Washington with us to make the fight for FEMA money, and those grants are actually coming out this month, so hopefully we'll reap some rewards of those visits and get some FEMA dollars coming in, all hands on deck there. But it's an opportunity to support the local police department as well as the port with port security FEMA dollars. So we'll be going back to bat for that funding over the next month. Infrastructure. We have about $105 million that we're putting to work through a variety of grants. We got an $80 million grant from the state. We've gotten other money from VCTC, from earmarks from our Congresswoman Julia Brownley, among others, and we're putting that money to work to not only expand our opportunities in terms of creating trade and expansion, but also do it with a nod towards the environment. So exciting things, we're going for full port-wide electrification, harbor deepening so we can bring more sand to your local beach here. New stormwater systems, and we got an $850,000 earmark from Julia Brownley for electric sweeper, and as we all know from the recent storm, how important that is. Work on traffic safety enhancements at our gate, green hydrogen to run our reefer plugs, which is the containers that we plug in that are full of blueberries and bananas and avocados, among other things. And then also we got $2 million for workforce development so we can really help uplift our local community and have access to the good paying jobs affiliated with the port. On the environment front, I'll just say that our blueprint to decarbonization is in front of the CEC now. We do have robust goals set in that to decarbonize port operations by 2030, and we're optimistic that will get approved, and we'll do a big press launch around that. That state funding is really going to help us get over the finish line. And I'd also like to point out our customers are really committed. Our stevedore companies want to have all of their handling equipment go to electric, and they're willing to make the investments. And what's kind of exciting about this to them is that because of the size and scale of Port of Hueneme, we can actually be the first port in the whole country to be fully electric when it comes to operations. So that's our goal. It's a robust goal, but we're excited to put our best foot forward and achieve it. The gentleman talked about our air quality website. Indeed, that's been up. It has been a work in progress, but it does report out. We collect data about our air every second, every day, and we are now posting that live on the internet and with videos and things that explain that data. I will point out that there are a lot of other actors in our community, and so there the air that we're measuring isn't all port air, right? It's all of our air and all the different actors in the community that are adding to any pollution that we might see come out in this data, but we're the ones that are capturing it and we're sharing it, and we're doing our best to mitigate our footprint in terms of the business that we do here in your community. Trucks, just quickly touch on trucks. Drayage trucks are trucks that do short haul moves. So that's a container that's coming in from a port, and then it will go to a distribution facility. That short move is called a drayage move. So there has been a new regulation that came out from ARB, and all of the new purchases for these drayage trucks have to be electric starting January 1st of this fiscal year, of this calendar year, excuse me, January 1st, 2024. Also, any existing trucks that are in system must be newer than 2009. They have to be 2010 or newer. This law, though, has been challenged by a trucker association because it wasn't approved by the EPA, so it's been paused, but we suspect that it will be approved by the EPA and will be live in relatively short order. But that's good news in terms of some of the impacts of the trucks that move through our communities. And I'd like to report out, too, that recently we conducted a freight study with the Ventura County Transportation Commission. And from that study, we learned that we're only responsible for 0.6% of all trucks in the county, and 23% of the trucks on Port Hueneme corridor, our freight corridor, which means 77% of the trucks come from somewhere else. Shoreside Power, we know we had a hiccup here. This is the all hands on deck press event that we had to get the money to rebuild our shoreside power system that was damaged by the storm on the 21st. As we know, our community here was hit pretty hard. The good news is that we did, because of the value of the damage, $40 million, it did open up the coffers for state relief, disaster relief funding. So our application has been approved, and the door is now open for your community for public infrastructure to get fixed and repaired from the damage and access to these funds. So James, I'm not sure we can talk offline, but you're able to apply and get your application in for the library, among other things that may have been impacted from the storm. And we're doing our best, all hands on deck. We want to build this fast and we want to get it up, but it takes time. There are lead times on parts, so we're going to be honest, it's probably going to be about 1.5 years till it's rebuilt. But we're looking at other systems to reduce emissions and maybe bring those online as early as this summer if we can. The bonnet system, I think I mentioned, is you put like a hat on the stack of a ship and it captures the emissions. So we're working hard to get new technologies in here while we rebuild. Innovation, FathomWorks is doing really well. Have you all had an opportunity to get over there and see the hub, innovation hub? So these two companies, Battery Streak just got a huge account with the military. They're getting national news and press, and then all got seated here at our local incubator lab, FathomWorks. So some just continue to do really fun things. We had the Lego first. Just remind everyone, we do have a $250,000 grant we get each year from GoBiz that opens up the doors to this laboratory for women-owned and minority-owned businesses. We do a lot of STEM projects, a lot of high school programs. So it's great to say that FathomWorks is just killing it. They're doing really, really well. All right. And community, just to close and wrap up, you know, it's so important that we work together and do exciting things to support our community. We really are and want to be part of the fabric of the community, the Port of Hueneme. We do about $300,000 in sponsorships every year. We've had about 100 community food drives throughout the county where our customers have contributed 1.8 million pounds of bananas, and we bring in other types of beans and proteins to those events. We're on our 20th cohort of our global trade logistics class with high school students. So rewarding to see some of these kids go on to study international trade and build careers in this area. And the successful students in these programs get paid internships with us, so that's been very well received. We do about 20,000, we have about 2,000 folks come to the port every year on our tours, and we do elementary school tours. We pay for busing if the kids can't get here. And if you look at the picture there with the kids going like this, they come in dragging their feet, but when they leave, they sing cranes and boats and all kinds of cool stuff, green bananas. So it's been a very well-received program and something to get kids to see something right there in their backyard that they might not know about. And then just finally, in closing, James, to your earlier remark about opportunities that we're talking about strategic partnerships, one thing that we're doing with our community team is that we're going to be doing listening sessions. We're going to have our staff go out and meet with the public and really hear what's on their mind and learn what's important about the community. So when we make investments with our sponsorships and whatnot, we are hearing what the community really needs and make those investments in a meaningful and an intentional, impactful way. We continue to keep our doors open to all residents that want to come out and do tours. We're welcome to have you come out, learn more about what we do. We have several community partners here that are listed on this slide. I won't read them all. Obviously, safety and security are top priority. We're continuing trying to educate our truckers on driving at the right speed limits, working closely with the police department on certain training programs that they have so that we're really in unison when it comes to keeping our perimeter secure and our people here in our community safe. And then finally, there's just a lot of wonderful opportunities for our continued collaboration, whether it's around the biannual dredging, of the beaches, our annual trip to DC, economic development strategies. Tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with your consultant and get interviewed on opportunities there, so look forward to that. Then, of course, on innovation environment, so we can be the first greenest port in the country. We look forward to doing that with you. So with that, I think that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Kristen. Does council have any questions while we have her here?
Thank you, Kristen. The presentation was wonderful. I just wanted to go back to the slide for the taxes because it went by really fast. I just want to look at it a little bit more.
Okay, let's see if I'm that talented. Can you put it back up and I can jump to it?
But I thought the presentation was great. I know everyone talks about improving our relationship, but I don't think they give the staff enough credit. You have wonderful staff, including yourself, and I think you guys have done a great job connecting with our community.
Thank you. City Council member, here's the tax slide. Was there a specific question?
Oh, okay, no, I just,
Okay.
it was really quick, and I just wanted to get a chance to see it a little bit.
So those are revenues that are created from the businesses that do work with the port. And so BMW has someone that lives in Port Hueneme and pays taxes, owns a home, those sorts of things. That's where it's like a trickle effect in economics.
That's actually exactly. I was going to clarify because one of the slides, a couple slides later, you mentioned that the revenue sharing from the agreement is about $2.9 million a year. And so this is impact from businesses, not the actual revenue sharing.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's, I think I got it.
Yeah, they're different numbers, yeah.
Councilmember Gama?
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate you being here tonight. I find myself in a very unique position. As you know, I'm employed by one of your major tenants, and I love it. I live close proximity to the port, therefore I'm affected, and I see all the good and the maybe concerning things. And then I'm a city council person, and so when it comes to communication, you know, I have to be mindful of my hat, and believe me, at Yara, I go through Jay. You know, sometimes I go around him, but you know, I do want to keep my livelihood. So, I'm most concerned about safety and the port logistics robotics competition. I was heading to my friend's house for dinner, and got caught in the traffic jam, and we just studied pedestrian safety, and there's a lack of sidewalks around the port. There's buses, there's kids coming out behind buses and cars, I mean, and parking at the beach. And I just hope that, that we could communicate and partner and start planning for next year so that we could avoid that gridlock situation. I think there's some really great opportunities coming up. So communication-wise, like if as a resident I see something, how do we communicate directly to the port for as residents? Like what's that method for residents? Do they have a
Yeah,
tip
we
line,
do
a
have
hotline, or?
you know, it's a good question. We do have a hotline, and forgive me, I'll have to email James the number so we can get back there. We have put it out on Nextdoor so that people can call us 24/7. We also have our Harbor Master department. To your point, I agree with you 100%. I came out during Lego First, and the traffic was a nightmare, and we'll coordinate with James. We're going to have a hot wash debrief, and I think we really should have everybody parking up the parking lots and shuttle people in so the community at large is not impacted by that event. I agree with you 100%.
I have
Yeah.
a couple ideas I would like to
Okay.
share. I mean, tonight could be I could share one.
Sure.
That property across from the port entrance, we're going to have to be removing dirt. Perhaps that could be converted to a temporary parking lot. Looking at sidewalks. And then the other issue that kind of haunts me every morning at 5:30, it's very dark at the entrance of the port. And I saw some kids there the other night and couldn't see them. And maybe we could work at lightening that up or getting more lights out there. But how do we, as a council, again, I'm in a unique position, I work there, I live close by, and I'm a council member. How do we communicate ideas? Because I find that it's difficult to do that.
Well, for one, I did find the number here for our harbor masters, just in case anyone from the general public ever has questions, 805-488-4615. And we also have a hotline that we set up, and I'll make sure we get that out. We can post on Nextdoor. In terms of ideas coming from the city council, our vice president's here. Our president is here, is happy to meet with you. We also have the Port City meeting. We have the next one, the 16th. So I strongly encourage you as a body to collaborate on what your ideas might be, and then the representatives on that committee can bring those ideas, and we can have constructive conversations.
I'm glad you brought that up, because if I bring an idea to the two members, I violated the Brown Act.
So I think you could agendize items that you would like to discuss to bring into those committee meetings. You could definitely do that. And then at the Port City meetings, we would do the same thing. We could agendize our ideas at the port level and then bring them in. We can always have joint meetings too. We've done that historically. There's a lot of opportunities for you.
And I met with you directly a couple times. And so is there a problem with me sending a letter as a resident to the port?
It's the United States of America. I'm sure it's fine for you
it
to
fine?
send a letter as a resident, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to, again, I think we do need more communication, and we need to encourage more communication, and hopefully we could address sidewalks, safety, crosswalks, and the things that really where we interact, business and our community interact, and so.
Yeah, I think you have opportunities as a resident, of course, to bring your concerns directly to us, and then we have the opportunity through our various bodies to have official discussions and formalize strategy and come up with good ideas for security and safety, all for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gama. Councilmember Hernandez?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for your presentation. I appreciate everything the port does for our community. Not only are you an economic driver, not only is the port an economic driver for the county as a whole, we do benefit through the Community Benefit Fund, and I'm very appreciative of that. But I'm also appreciative of the fact that you do things for our community that we can't do as a city. And you outlined those actions in your slide on community. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you for leadership.
Mayor Pro Tem Martha?
Yeah, no questions, but again, thank you for the presentation. I feel like a lot of information. I think every time I hear it, I kind of log something else in my brain, so appreciate it very much. And again, thank you for all that you continue to do for our community. It's important that the community members see you and see us, and so we appreciate all the efforts.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm glad you came today, and I know that you and James have talked about what the city's goals are with the port, and I'm looking forward to meetings to discuss that further and more ideas from the council as to what their ideas, what that looks like. So I hope we can have more meetings besides, I know last year we didn't get a chance to have that many meetings, So maybe we could put some time down and actually
Yeah, we
get
can
together more
pump 'em up.
often.
Great
Thank you.
idea. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. Enjoyed my time with you this evening.
You know,
Thank
I do have one last question,
Oh,
if that's
sorry.
okay.
Of course.
I was wondering if the port meetings were gonna be recorded anytime soon. If there was any plans on recording those meetings.
I have no objection to that. I think that would be the will of the decision makers at the meeting itself to decide to do that. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Yeah.
nothing has been decided yet.
It hasn't even been brought to my attention officially, but I think our next meeting's the 16th, and we certainly could talk about it. I don't think we have done it historically, but I don't see why there would be objection to it. It's a public meeting.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so now we will recess the city council meeting and call to order the Port Hueneme Housing Authority regular meeting. The time is 7:20. And we might as well because we're missing one. And I didn't see
And
Gabby.
I'll just explain, yeah. And so there's going to be a couple things, and just to explain to the public. So we are going to call our housing authority meeting to order, but we're also forming a new entity called the Hueneme Housing Incorporated. So we'll be calling that to order as well. So it's going to get maybe a little confusing for a minute, and we'll take a 1 minute.
If you've seen Inception, you should be able to follow along pretty well.
Inception? The movie?
Oh, God, a nightmare.
Gabby has a meeting. Is Gabby at the council meeting? Oh, okay.
It went down, or did it go all the way back up? I told you it was gonna go up eventually, because it went down for some time.
Not too much, but you know what? You made a great comment on the parking.
Guys, just let you know, you guys have hot mic and we're still recording. Okay. Just wanted to let you know.
When they have those robotic things, it's great. But I live in Mar Vista. They take all our parking, and they come with trucks with big old trailers. I mean, and we have nowhere to park. Nowhere. We have to park 3 blocks away.
Housing Authority regular meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please take roll call?
Member Brown,
Present.
Member Gama,
Present.
Member Hernandez,
Here.
Member Martinez,
Present.
Vice Chair McQueen-Lejean,
Here.
Chair Perez,
Here.
and let the record reflect that Member Blackwell is absent.
Thank you. We will now hear public comments pertaining to items not on the agenda for the Housing Authority agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
And we will now consider items on the Housing Authority consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless a authority member has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
We now move on to the authority members' reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. Are there any members that have a request for a future agenda item?
No, no, well, I'm sorry. I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was talking to Mr. Councilman Gama here about the parking when they have the robotic. I mean, that's great and everything, but like I live in Mar Vista there, and they take up all the parking. We don't hardly have any parking ourselves to begin with, and then I don't even move my car. I get somebody to take me somewhere because if I move, I'm not going to get a parking for the whole day.
I think that is a great agenda item, but I don't know that it's appropriate for the Housing Authority.
No, I know. I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the port mentioned this, but we did tell them that we want to work with them next year to plan in advance. So we'll make sure we keep everybody in the loop on that and keep everybody informed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a future agenda item?
No.
Seeing none, we will adjourn the Housing Authority regular meeting. The Port Hueneme Housing Authority will adjourn to its next regular meeting scheduled for May 6, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. The time is now 7:26.
Before you, may I?
Yes.
About the window project? Sorry about that. I'm wondering about the window project. Has it been completed yet?
Window project.
They're replacing sliding glass doors. Yeah.
Mar Vista.
Mar Vista. So we have we do have our housing director Gabby on Zoom. So I'll ask her if she can update us on the window project.
Hello, good evening, members of the board. Actually, yes, the window and sliding door project was completed probably about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
All right. Anything further?
1.5 years ago.
Thank you, Director Busua. All right, so now we will adjourn the Housing Authority regular meeting. The time is 7:27. And we will call to order the Hueneme Housing, Inc. meeting. The time is 7:27. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Gamo? Board Member Hernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Martinez?
Present.
Vice Chair McQueen-Lojean?
Here.
And Chair Perez.
Here. We will now hear public comments pertaining to items not on the Hueneme Housing, Inc. agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. We will have a business item to discuss for the Hueneme Housing, Inc., and that will be the initial meeting of Board of Directors, approval of bylaws, appointment of officers, and filing of statement of information. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to introduce Gabby Busua, our housing director, to provide the report, and just reiterate, because I think I might have said it when we went to break, that I know this agenda is a little confusing because it's the first meeting of creating the Hueneme Housing Incorporated entity. And so we're going to walk through why we're doing that and the next steps. So with that, I'll introduce Gabby Busua.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. The item before you today is the approval of the bylaws for the Port Hueneme Incorporated. It is going to be a nonprofit board. The mission is to provide low-income housing to the city of Port Hueneme,
Today is your first official meeting. You have the bylaws in front of you, which will establish the board. And I am available to answer any questions that you may have, if it's regarding their mission, the purpose. And Kevin is also available to answer any legal questions that you may have concerning the corporation.
Thank you, Director Busua. Does council have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Basua, for the staff report and staff who worked on this. Congratulations. I think it's very exciting that we're establishing this new entity, and I think it'll be good for the city and give the Housing Inc. some flexibility in bringing more affordable housing to the city. I just had some questions about the structure of the new organization, and I submitted some in writing earlier, and I just wanted to publicly ask them. So I understand that there are some city staff members who will be serving as the president. You'll be serving as the president, Ms. Basua. Ms. Lupe Acero will be the treasurer, and Ms. Georgiana Alvarez will be the secretary. But what will be the role of the city manager? If we have a question, for instance, regarding the Housing Inc., do we still go through the city manager, or do we go through the president? What's the process here?
It would still go through the city manager based on the city council policy and procedures manual and the city's municipal code. Notwithstanding, however, it's important to keep in mind that this is a separate and distinct legal organization. And so the type of work I'm informed this is going to be doing, almost all conversations would exclusively be happening in a public meeting. I don't foresee any real reason to be talking to staff behind the scenes, given my understanding of what this nonprofit will eventually be doing. It should all be very transparent, and I know that there's anticipation that this will be a busy nonprofit, at least initially, but a lot of kind of what's going on behind the scenes with this nonprofit as things get started and complying with HUD and potential leveraging with refinance and whatnot will not be things that will be disclosed individually to individual council members or board members. It will be something that's addressed at the board level when appropriate.
Right, and I wouldn't expect that. I would expect to follow the process. I just, it was not clear in the attachments, which were the Article 1 of the organization, what the role of this city manager is, and there was no mention of an executive director. So that was somewhat confusing to me.
Given the current structure of the Port Hueneme Housing Authority, the executive structure of the Housing Authority was matched with respect to the creation of the nonprofit.
Okay, very good. And
if I could just add, and we did discuss that, and at this point, we ultimately decided to just match the existing structure, but we did talk about if we do have that desire to revisit that the board will have the power to amend these bylaws and can make that change. So we will look at it, and when we feel it's time to look at that, we'll make that recommendation.
Okay, very good. And will we still have a representative of the tenants, like Mar Vista? Will that still be part of the board of directors?
For the Housing Authority, yes, that would be correct, where it's appropriate for a tenant organization or a tenant representative to exist. From the property owner and the landlord's side, I don't believe it's appropriate for the board of directors. No.
So now you make me want to ask another question. Is the Housing Authority going away?
No, it is not. The Housing Authority is still going to be engaging with HUD and processing payments and whatnot. It's this is I think it's probably best. My current understanding is to think of the nonprofit corporation as the property owner, as the landlord, instead of essentially going out and finding private residents who are willing to rent or lease their properties in return for vouchers.
Okay. And then what will be the meeting schedule? Will it follow council, be attached to council meetings?
It's yet to be determined. The way the bylaws are written at the moment is the meeting schedule will be approved by resolution of the board once things are kind of finalized and we get a clearer idea as to what the schedule is going to look like. But I anticipate, and I've been informed by Ms. Basua, that at least initially the board's going to be fairly busy, so I would anticipate a regular meeting schedule.
Okay. Thank you. I have no more questions.
Go ahead.
I'm curious as to what would constitute being fairly busy. Just doing all the paperwork, filings.
There's.
I
Oh, go ahead, Gabby.
Okay, I can probably answer that. So I do anticipate that this board we will be bringing presentations to this board in order to acquire land to build. We will be my vision, at least for this nonprofit, is to acquire land and be a builder for low-income housing for our city. So you will be having to make decisions of whether or not that is something that you would like to see in the city. You are going to be considered the landlord and the owner of the properties.
And in terms of indemnification and liability insurance, do we just extend our current coverages over to this new nonprofit?
With respect to liability insurance?
Insurance as a whole, like
Insurance as a whole, this is a separate entity.
So they
it
have to
would
get
need
their own?
Exactly.
And where are they going to get it?
It's up to the board to decide, and it's up to how this entity is funded in order to finance it.
And then would the JPIA be in the business of offering these nonprofits coverage?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to look into it, but my initial indication or idea is that this is a private organization. This is not a local agency, so I'm not sure that CJPIA would offer coverage to this.
And so then to our city manager, how do we guide them to, because that seems to me might be first priority.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Today is adopting the bylaws and implementing those, and then I think there's going to be some immediate business, which is sort of what the reference to having some busy first couple of meetings. But we're going to have some immediate business things to take care of, and those will be some of those things.
So if the city had a piece of property that we think would be great for low-income housing, would we then initiate contact through this nonprofit, or are we going to wait to be contacted, or how does that work? Who starts the process?
It's possible that the nonprofit would do so. We're getting pretty far afield. We've still got IRS and FTB filings. We still haven't filed a statement of information with the Secretary of State. We're still in the incorporation phase. So as of right now, as far as the Secretary of State knows, is this corporation exists, and tonight it's having its initial meeting. Other than that, nothing's been decided. There's going to be at least 8 months of filings and things before any of this gets discussed. So it's important to remember that this corporation is still very much in its infancy.
And then does the housing authority, they're packaged under the city's insurance program, is that correct?
Yes, and Ms. Basua can correct me if she has the answer, but my understanding is the housing authority statutes in the state of California create a separate department within the city that is the housing authority, but this housing authority is in fact a city department, not a separate entity.
And so the nonprofit is
The
one step
nonprofit
out
is a
from
separate private entity.
Okay.
Yes.
And just to remind everybody, because we did a presentation maybe 2 or 3 months ago on the concept, and there's it's a hoop we have to jump through to be able to raise funding to either build units or acquire property or what have you to actually develop affordable housing. And so just we as the city, we couldn't do things like mortgage a property, but the nonprofit can mortgage a property. So and then just to go back to the question of, is there the possibility that either the city approaches the housing group with like, here's properties that maybe would be good potential for you and let's have that conversation, or would the housing group approach us? I expect both of those things will happen, and to some level, we've already had some of those initial conversations of some of the things that could be mutually beneficial to the city and the housing, Hueneme Housing Inc. So.
I can give a little bit more information regarding kind of the reason why this is such an attractive proposition is typically, the way that HUD and everybody used to operate was that a 55-year covenant was required on a property that was offered for affordable housing purposes. And so HUD required a 55-year covenant. They also required numerous documents to be recorded in the chain of title, like regulatory agreements and whatnot that discussed how the properties had to be leveraged, how they had to be financed, how they had to be, in order to ensure that those properties would continue to exist and continue to be available for affordable housing purposes for the next 55 years. Ultimately, what HUD has discovered over 55 years of doing this is that that prevents those properties from being capable of refinance. They don't appreciate the same as other properties. They don't. It's almost impossible to continue to fund those properties and to rehabilitate them after 55 years has elapsed because no bank is willing to invest in them. So this is HUD's effort of getting around the 55-year covenant, which renders title to the property unmarketable. This now allows you to leverage increased property values in an effort to rehabilitate those properties, modernize them, make the appropriate ADA repairs, do the things that you otherwise couldn't do without very complicated transactions through various banks with subordination agreements as well as regulatory agreements that took months to negotiate and still resulted in diminished value received from properties that were essentially burdened by extensive covenants. And so this allows us to get around that and realize the value of these properties with the end goal of improving those properties for residents.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, for that explanation. Are there any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to review and adopt the draft bylaws, appoint Ms. Gabriela Bostua as the president, appoint Ms. Lupe Acero as the treasurer, and appoint Ms. Georgiana Alvarez as the secretary of said corporation. It is further recommended that the proposed board of directors authorize Kevin Spaulding to file a statement of information for the corporation with the Secretary of State.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Do I have a second? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we will now adjourn the Hueneme Housing Inc. meeting, and we will reconvene the City Council meeting. The time is now 7:41. And moving on to the consent calendar. We will now consider items on the consent. Wait, do we need to do roll call again for those? No?
No, because we called back to order.
So we will now consider items on the consent calendar, which will now be enacted in one motion unless a council member has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
We have no public hearings, and we're moving on to business items. The first business item is the Ventura County Organized Retail Theft Task Force. Will staff please present the report?
Yeah, and I'm going to actually introduce our Police Chief Federico and our partner from the sheriff to give an overview on the on the proposal and the project.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'm joined by Captain Ron Chips with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department and Assistant Sheriff Vic Fazio. Staff's recommended that City Council authorize us to execute an MOU for an organized retail theft task force with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. Little background on this: in December of 2023, Ventura County was named the safest large county in all of California. Ventura County law enforcement officials attributed this designation to the collaborative working relationship amongst all your law enforcement agencies. The partnership has provided another opportunity in the form of the Ventura County Organized Retail Theft Task Force. Retail theft has become a crisis in many areas across the state and country, and was estimated to cost over $110 billion across the country last year. Ventura County law enforcement agencies are proactively proposing development to join a task force to address this issue. So I'm going to allow Captain Chips to talk about the task force.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, Mr. Vega. My name is Ron Chips. I'm a captain with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and give you just a brief overview of the Ventura County Organized Retail Theft Task Force. In September of last year, the Sheriff's Office applied for and was awarded a $15.6 million grant focusing specifically on organized retail theft, auto part theft, so like catalytic converters, and also cargo theft. With that grant money, we created a multi-agency task force that was focused on addressing the nearly $10 million estimated loss in Ventura County each year due to organized retail theft-related crimes. Our grant covers a 44-month period, which ends in the end of December in 2026, and provides funding for salary and benefits for a total of 8 sworn positions within the task force and some non-sworn professional staff. The sworn staff includes 2 sergeants. One is a sergeant with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office who's currently in place, and then one, should your council approve or authorize the execution of this memorandum of agreement, would be from the Port Hueneme Police Department, starting hopefully around April 15th. The task force has 8 sworn investigators who operate underneath the 2 sergeants, 4 of which will come from the Sheriff's Office and are actually currently in place, and then 2 from other agencies within the county. Currently, we have an agreement with the Simi Valley Police Department to fill one of those outside agency spots with a detective starting April 15th. This grant, amongst other things, also provides funding for a vehicle. So the sergeant will be driving a sheriff's funded vehicle and also other related equipment that may be necessary for any member of the task force. Obviously, our overall goal is to reduce the instances of ORT, organized retail theft, and related crimes by 50% over the 3-year grant period. We're going to accomplish this by assigning each reported case of organized retail theft and related crimes to one of the task force investigators, utilizing intelligence-led policing principles to identify, apprehend thieves, and hold them accountable for the crimes that they commit in our county. The task force is currently up and running with the staff that we have from the Sheriff's Office. We've been operating for about a week. We have, like I said, 1 sergeant from the Sheriff's Office and 4 senior deputy investigators. We've already had 1 success story as of last Friday. We arrested 2 out of 3 suspects who were involved in a multi-$1,000 theft from sunglass retailers in the cities of Camarillo and Thousand Oaks. Additionally, as part of that case, kind of a byproduct was we were able to identify an online marketplace where some of these stolen items are being sold throughout the state. So that's going to help us hopefully continue to curtail the problem and identify other suspects and recover stolen property. So that's a brief overview of the program. I'll turn it back over to the chief. So I appreciate the opportunity again to describe the program to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
So folks, much respect from Sheriff Freihoff and Assistant Sheriff Fazio for inviting your Port Hueneme Police Department to be a team leader on this task force. We're fortunate enough to have Sergeant Baltazar Tapia amongst our ranks, who has prior task force experience. And as a sergeant, Sergeant Tapia can basically get started right away because he has prior task force experience, and he has a skill set to help lead and mentor in this team. Again, your smallest PD in the county is being asked by the sheriff to come lead it, and that's a lot of respect from them. Appreciate it. The timing is very right for this position. As you all remember, Officer Gutierrez was sworn in not too long ago. His position, as he's getting off field training now, can replace this position with Tapia. Give you a little bit more about career development in our personnel. We can put Senior Officer Henry Montalongo into a supervisor role to replace Tapia's shift because, folks, I have a few years to get our less tenured people up and running to take this department over for the number of retirements that are approaching in the near future. And it's a big part of what I'm doing is succession planning and career development and as quickly and effectively as we can. And this is a perfect opportunity and timing for that. This is a fully funded position, equipment too, vehicle, fully funded salary benefits. This allows us to, there'll be two parts to this. The first part's going to be a salary savings at first, but the second part's going to be we will have an opportunity like no other to overhire for that position so we don't have any gaps in our future succession planning. As people retire, we will already have trained up personnel. There's retirements potentially in the next 1 to 3 years, and this is a 3-year funded position. So we can take this opportunity that is unique to try to stop the gap on vacancies and have trained people ready to take over. This is one more assignment in your department that we do not currently have. This allows me to help recruit lateral officers to our department if I can create more assignments. We have a limited number of assignments in a small department, but this is another assignment somebody could rotate into during their career. I need a variety of assignments, and this is one. Working the organized retail theft operations in our city will bring extra resources into our city that we don't have. It'll also bring added security to our port, as some of the operations we're going to do is going to involve cargo theft. Talking to my federal partners, my port partners on Kristen's team, there's a lot we need to start looking into our port, and this team is going to allow us to do that. Port security is something that's been on my priority list since I came back as chief, and this is a big step to get us back into the footprint of the port. We do not have a surveillance team, folks. We have to assemble them quickly, borrow from others when we need one. There are times when we need them within hours. This is going to be a one phone call activation of a surveillance team by calling Sergeant Tapia if we need them. Another benefit that comes from this task force assignment is a separate overtime budget that comes back to us in the city. And I can utilize that to prevent even some of our shoplifting retail theft in the north end. I can actually fund some bike patrol details in our shopping centers with that. I can fund some details at the port with that. I can fund catalytic converter thief details with that overtime budget that also comes. In our 400 plus Part 1 crimes that I reported to you last year at a prior meeting, 85% of those were property crimes. Of the 85%, about a third were retail related. Of the remaining 10%, you had catalytic converter thefts and other vehicle part thefts, something that this task force will look into. Out of another 10% of that, those thefts were stolen vehicles. Again, something else the organized retail theft team's going to look at and investigate. Something else that we need as a small PD, all small PDs do. There are crimes occurring in all of our cities that are from suspects outside the area. And that is something you need a task force for. He just said they worked a case. You start to put the lines together where property's going, you realize it's outside. A good example is we just had a distraction theft case on our beach this weekend, and the victims were elderly, and some people drove up in a car and started talking to them about their jewelry and showing them jewelry they had, and by the time this elderly couple realized what's going on, these people are swapping off their jewelry and they're driving away. Well, we did a lot of research to find out that suspect vehicle because we have some technology in the city. And unfortunately, our suspects are out of Orange County. Imagine this. You have a suspect hitting our beach here in Orange County. The same day they could hit Ventura. The same day they could stop off the 101 and hit somebody at a mall in Thousand Oaks, and they're going to keep going. That's why you have a task force, because once one triggers and we get the task force going and you make a phone call, they'll have team members on the other side of the county that may already be watching for this. And a task force already set up to start looking at cameras and other stuff. And if this goes to Orange County, this is a task force that's not tied to here. They can go down to Orange County and they can do a surveillance down there on our suspects from up here. Real life story, just happened this weekend. These are things that are possible with a task force. So with that, I can open it up for questions.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councilmember? Mhm.
So I think when we talk about hiring officers, I'm all for that. I think this is a great opportunity for the city, so I really appreciate the city getting an opportunity to participate. But I'm always under the impression that we're right-sized, right? We're right-sized. We have what we need. And so when we are sending someone to do other work, what is not being done in the city, or how soon will you be hiring someone to do the work of the person who's going to be out doing something else?
So it's an immediate replacement for all of our staffing levels. I have a couple of other priority positions I'll be creating down the road, but the timing's not right for those because they're being handled collaterally. So the timing on this movement of this position's good, and there's 1-for-1 right now with Gutierrez filling it, and I have several lateral applicants that are being interviewed next week that we can hire on in the department to fill our last 2 vacancies, which will give us a couple of overlapping spots on patrol.
Okay, so as people are moving to other positions, something is vacant.
However,
help me with that.
so right now, with your existing staff, we are efficient and effective. We are good. There's a couple more spots I want to create: patrol, detectives, and the collaterals we have. So those are good. What I wanted for this to happen was that one more body, which we just got in Officer Gutierrez. So he's gonna go in to fill that 22nd spot for Tapia. And as Tapia leaves, with our laterals that we have coming in, we'll have the opportunity to fill those last 2 positions and potentially hire for Tapia's position as well, which will give us one more over the 24 to 25 officers, but it's a budget neutral position because we're getting compensated by the county task force.
Great, so I'll ask one more question and I'll be done, I think. So everything is still going to be done, and we're not taxing any of our officers to cover until you hire someone else. So everything's covered.
Everything's
not
covered.
missing
The only person who gets overtasked is your chief when he decides to take a bike out on Saturday.
Okay.
And go hang out with real guppies on the pier.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just maybe add to that too, just quickly. We had 3 vacancies in our police department. We just filled one, Officer Gutierrez, so we're down to 2 vacancies. And I think when we talk about being right-sized, I think we do have the right-sized department, but we had operated with a lot of vacancies for a long time, and that's not unique. That's the problem going county-wide. I think the sheriff's department is struggling to fill positions right now. All police departments are struggling to fill positions right now. We've all heard about Santa Paula and their situation, for example. So we're actually pretty fortunate that we're actually kind of getting back to fully staffed while this is going on.
Bragging rights.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's a rare problem to have right now. So we've actually built back up, and so I think that was what Chief Federico was explaining when he said by filling that position, we actually kind of reached a level we hadn't been at for a while because we'd had the vacancies, and we're actually working on recruiting another lateral officer at this time, and where we'd be even only have 1 vacancy at that point. So that's what kind of freed up the ability to do this, and then this down the line. The great thing about this that even I didn't expect was this is a 3-year MOU. And so that 3-year commitment does open up possibilities when we look at the budget to say, well, if we know that this is paid for by this grant, then what can we do with that? What we can actually get more services for our community. So that'll be talked about separately with the budget. So
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for your presentation, Captain, and welcome, Assistant Sheriff Azio. Good to see you. I want to preface my questions with the fact that I am very supportive of regional planning, regional coordination with our local law enforcement agencies. I think it's great. And the need for this task force, I think, is certainly there based on the trends that we're seeing out there and criminal activity and the organized theft. And I'm glad that you mentioned the cargo security on the port, because it was mentioned in the report, but I didn't know that it was going to be referencing the port of Hueneme, which is, I think we've needed to do that for a long time, and I'm sure that they welcome the assistance. I do have some similar questions, though, regarding losing Sergeant Tapia, who was just recently promoted to sergeant. He has a lot of great experience, good investigative experience, one of our top cops, and he's going to, you know, rightly go to a stellar agency now and work on this task force. But will Gutierrez be able to match his experience? How do you figure that?
Gutierrez isn't matching his experience. Henry Montalongo's taking his position.
Okay, Henry Long. Okay.
And then Gutierrez is just filling basically the officer spot to
Okay.
remove Henry out of there.
Okay.
So it's
I feel
it's
like we're
timing.
playing chess here. It would be. I would love to see a diagram so that you could show us. I think that would be better. I would better be able to understand.
If I may ask a question, are we getting into personnel discussions here?
Yeah, I think
Kind of
I
feels
think
like
that the big picture answer, without getting into personnel issues, is that we've recently filled a position that gives us this flexibility. And then I think I would encourage everybody not to talk about qualifications of individual officers, but the chief is managing those positions that we have, and I know is looking at this as an opportunity to actually expand our resources and our qualifications. And so I think that's our response.
But for one response, you said it. A successful succession plan in any organization is chess. And it's something I've been planning since day one that I got here.
So I didn't mean to delve into personnel issues, but I just wanted to express, you know, how we feel about Sergeant Tapia and his experience, and it does, you know, it is a concern. We don't want to lose that level of experience and not be able to replace it. But if I can go on, please.
You're not speaking for me, so it's not we.
Excuse me.
Okay. Councilmember Hernandez, can you please finish?
Yes, if I'd like,
Question?
okay,
Thank
my
you.
next question is, in 2026, what happens with the program? Do we return the vehicle? Does the position come back then to the sheriff, to our agency?
I fully expect, that given the statewide issue that we're seeing with organized retail theft crimes, I expect there will be another organized retail theft grant program. But unfortunately, I can't say standing here today that's a for sure thing. But I would say we have a very good shot, especially with the program that we're creating with the multi-agency, coordinated task force model. We're definitely going to be on the forefront and have the eye of the state of the governor in future grant programs.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. I think that concludes my questions. Thanks again for coming out tonight. Appreciate it very much.
Any other questions from council? All right, I'll just.
Mayor, could I just maybe add one more comment? Because I think one thing that the chief hit on that I really want to drive home is especially for smaller agencies, when you know retirements and things like that are coming, and I've been through this myself, where you don't have a position to start training, to bring in the next person and train them up to be prepared to take their place and to get the experience and the knowledge from them. And what I've seen and what I've lived through is that 2 or 3 years later, you look back and go, I wish we had figured out a way to bring somebody in to learn from this person before they left. And I think for us, that was a legitimate concern we have looking at our officers and anticipating probably some retirements in a couple years, that we don't have the budget to start kind of giving people those experiences to be ready to replace or to step into those shoes. So that is, I think, an important piece of this as well. And so this is an opportunity for us to do that. And I think lastly, just, and I understand the concern about, like, are we losing service to our community? I think I can speak for the chief, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but we believe this is a gain of more resources for the community, and I don't think we would even be proposing it if that wasn't the case. So Thank you.
I'll end with thanks you, Chief, and thank you, Captain, for the presentation. And I have full confidence in the Chief and his ability to determine who goes where, who's capable, who's ready, and I have no doubt that Senior Officer Montalongo will fill the shoes for Tapia when he leaves, and I think this is a great opportunity for Sergeant Tapia, so congratulations to him. So given that, do we have any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to authorize staff to execute the attached memorandum of understanding with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office to join the Ventura County Organized Retail Theft Task Force and to take steps needed to implement the MOU. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation?
Second.
Thank you. No further discussion?
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item, business item tonight is the planning and management of the 2024 Hueneme Beach Festival. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, thank you. And Deputy City Manager Charles Peretz will be presenting this. He had gone through the Citizen Advisory Commission and come back with recommendations from them and presented those to council a couple months back. And so this is the next step in that process. So he'll walk us through the process to date and what we're recommending at this time.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, members of the public, city staff. Item 12 on your agenda does pertain to the planning and management of this year's Hueneme Beach Festival and seeks council's approval of 4 separate recommendations. By way of quick background, on September 5th of last year, the council approved a list of topics that were appropriate for the Citizen Advisory Commission to review. The list included a review of city-sponsored large-scale events. Consistent with that direction, at their October 9th and November 13th meetings, the CAC reviewed a summary of the 2023 festival and offered recommendations pertaining to the conduct of the 2024 event. On December 18th, this information, along with a summary of the Citizen Advisory Commission's recommendation, was presented to the council. Council provided specific feedback to be used in the planning of the 2024 event and authorized staff to analyze in-house management options and issue a request for proposals as a contingency plan. Quick reminder, the specific direction that council provided in terms of feedback and planning concept was that community and nonprofit organizations should be a key focus. The event itself should be assured to have a community focus. We should look to increase the usage of Hueneme Beach, ensure youth involvement and sports activities are part of the event. At that time, there was a discussion about reducing the event to a one-day event and ensuring that we avoid conflicts with other events in the county. Ensure that there was a presence of Navy, Shumash, and community group participation. Ensure that resources serving our community were present and part of the event. Focus on the event being financially self-sustaining. Increase the regional draw and to maximize attendance of the event, and ensure that the cannabis presence is retained in the event. Pursuant to the direction given at that meeting, the city explored the possibility of using staff resources to organize and oversee the festival while also reviewing proposals received in response to the RFP. Because the city is fortunate to have staff members that possess a deep familiarity with the Hueneme community and have expertise in running events, we are recommending that the council cancel the RFP and authorize the use of a staff committee to plan and manage this year's event. The Police Explorer program, which offers valuable training and education to young members of the community in the field of law enforcement, would be part of the program. The festival provides an opportunity for the explorers to participate in crowd control, large event planning, and to assist the city in other valuable tasks. During staff's preliminary investigation, it became evident that reducing the event to a one-day event would not reduce expenses, but would likely have a substantive impact on revenues generated, both in the form of sponsorships and on-site revenue generation. As such, staff is recommending to continue hosting a 2-day festival. This year, the proposed dates would be September 7th and September 8th. Finally, staff is recommending a modification to the footprint of the festival that would incorporate the use of beach activities and reduce the traffic impacts along Surfside Drive. So there was a preliminary budget attached to the staff report, most importantly as it pertains to the city's contribution. Last year, the city was asked to provide an event sponsorship of $25,000, and at the conclusion of the event, the city was responsible for almost $46,000 of a deficit. So the total contribution of those two items was approximately $71,000. This year, the preliminary budget proposes a sponsorship from the city of $35,000 and a $25,000 donation to the Explorers for their participation and assistance with the event. So that's $60,000, representing an approximate $11,000 year-over-year decrease in the city's contribution to this event. So in summary, the recommendation from staff includes 4 items. To cancel the RFP and not award a contract to a vendor, to approve the use of an employee committee to plan and manage the festival, authorize a $25,000 donation to the Explorer program, and authorize the city manager to consider and accept in-kind donations in lieu of fees for local nonprofits. The last recommendation I didn't explain, so I'll just touch on that. As noted earlier in the planning concepts, we want to encourage and facilitate nonprofit organizations' involvement in the festival. And we thought that in addition to having booths, we could use some of our local nonprofits to participate, provide activities, and in exchange for that, we would waive the fees that would normally be associated with being a vendor at the event. So that's the reason to authorize the city manager to have that discretion. That concludes the presentation. City manager and I are available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peretz. Does council have any questions for staff? Mr. Councilmember Gama.
I thought I was told or I heard or that we're gonna scrap the cannabis part of it as being non-whatever.
So as the council assuredly knows, in years past, there has been a cannabis cove that has been an element of the festival. This year's conceptual plan at this time does not envision continuing the cannabis cove, but the comment was made when we went to council that we should retain a cannabis presence. So the thought is that we would, the part of the—
Where did that come from? Because I don't recall that. I don't think having cannabis and a youth-centered activity makes a lot of sense.
We're happy to take whatever direction of the council. Previously, it was discussed that it is an integral part of our community and it should be retained in some fashion. At this time, it was envisioned that the cannabis vendors would be able to be present and have booths there, but we would not have a cannabis cove where there would be any product discussions or any sale of any goods. If the council wishes to provide different direction on that matter, we're happy to receive that this evening.
So this is vastly different than before then? You're saying that
Cannabis
they could come and advertise their business but not sell?
There would be no cannabis cove, there would be no sale of products.
And there wouldn't be an exclusive cannabis cove area that there was before. It would just be either they can sponsor like any other sponsor and have their name on a banner, or they can have a booth like any other booth. So it would be it would still be incorporated, but it would be
no product.
Much lower key.
Yeah, lower key than in the past. That was the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Martinez, do you have any questions?
Yeah, no, I see that there's a request for more sports, but it isn't set exactly what sports are going to be incorporated.
Those types of details will be worked on with the committee should the council give us authority to move in this direction.
Okay, I would recommend contacting any of the volleyball teams in our local high schools, especially since beach volleyball is going on right now. I do understand that if they wanted to do a tournament, we would need at least one more volleyball court out there. I've been pushing for a volleyball court, and at least one more for a while, but I think that would be nice having like a volleyball tournament.
Yeah, the preliminary discussions, we have been focused on school teams, both volleyball and potentially soccer. Again, details
Soccer
to be
would be
determined,
nice, yeah.
but those are things that we anticipate making contacts should the council be supportive of this approach.
Of course.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Perez, for your report. I did submit some questions, some of which have been answered so far, but a lot of them have to do, well, my primary question has to do with the approach in hiring in-kind, using in-kind staff to conduct, to plan for, organize, and implement the festival. For a while now, we've been hearing that we shouldn't be asking staff to take on additional projects, that many staff are wrapped up in existing day-to-day duties, the Bubbling Springs project. Now we have the Public Works pipeline project that's going on. And so I'm wondering what the impact this is actually going to have on staff in terms of their time. I understand that Henry Montalongo has been pegged to do the organization, and the Explorers will be assisting in that. And I'm all for them gaining that special event experience. But there's also mention in the report that there's going to be an employee committee. And can you tell us more about that? Who will be, what departments will be committing staff to that committee, and what the impact of this is going to be on staff, because we have less than 6 months to put this event on.
So at this time, we anticipate participation from Recreation and Community Services, Police, Public Works, as well. You mentioned Henry Montalongo. Frank Montalongo has been the individual that we have communicated with. He and Henry certainly have experience with various events, so we'll probably pull experience and expertise from both of those individuals. But we anticipate a member of, again, Recreation, Public Works, and those individuals from the police department to participate.
And what's the time commitment, do you think, they will be utilizing towards the planning and implementation? Are they going to be meeting weekly, monthly? How many hours are we going to be committing staff?
So two thoughts. I think initially, I just wanted to point out, in the past, although we have not had city staff lead and facilitate the entirety of the process, there have been city staff members that have been involved in the planning and preparation for the event. Undoubtedly, this year will require additional resources and additional time. In direct answer to your question, initially it's anticipated that there'll be weekly meetings, and as additional tasks are identified and as we get closer to the event, the frequency of those meetings will assuredly need to increase. I think the specific outline for that type of plan will be identified, again, should council agree with and provide direction to move forward. We'll kind of create a specific schedule, a specific plan of action for meetings and tasks that need to be completed.
So was the thinking in going to using in-kind staff a budgetary decision? Was it thinking that we would save money?
There's a variety of factors. I think a couple of points is every staff person that right now we're envisioning being part of the committee has been part of the committee over the last several years. So I think if we're thinking we're starting with we didn't have any staff time in the past, that's not accurate. So
yeah, and that's not what I'm
saying. So it's the same group of people who've worked on it with in years past. They worked with an event manager, and so this year we talked to those to the different people that are involved, and we had 3 proposals for event managers to come in who had not done the Beach Fest before and were not familiar with the community and things like that. And so I think all of us sat down and looked at those and realized that there was a sense that we can do this ourselves easier than bringing someone in who isn't familiar with the community and doesn't know what Beach Fest is, and will essentially be paying someone to still be on the committee telling them how to do everything. So there's a variety of reasons just when you look at the big picture. The the reason we went to proposal, the reason we went to RFP was because I didn't want to do it by our employee committee unless our team felt like they could do it. So we went to RFP, and we wanted to have that option available. When the proposals came back, we all got together and decided we want to do this internally. So,
All right. So with that in mind, then, one of the things that we haven't done over the past years is quantified staff time in the budget. You know, we've dedicated police resources, public works resources, and we haven't quantified that in the budget. So really, to get a true picture of what our costs are for putting this festival together, I think we have to be realistic and transparent in describing what those costs are. Because if we're looking to save money, I don't know that we truly are if we're using in-kind resources. So under expenses, under event management, it's zero. So if there's some way we can quantify that, I'd be more comfortable in approving this tonight. Then the other comment I wanted to make, there's a couple of things that are zeroed out here that I had questions about. So I noticed that the VIP lounge has been zeroed out. Does that mean that there is going to be no, how will the sponsors be recognized? How will they be, will it be just advertising, or what are they going to get for their contributions? What's the plan?
So the primary change to the items that are provided to sponsors in the past, they were given tickets to the VIP Lagoon, and they were given some preferential parking spaces. The proposal, as you might have known, with zero under the parking revenue, is that we are not proposing to charge for revenue. We are not proposing to charge for parking this year. In your comment about the VIP, it is proposed that that would be eliminated. So those would be things that would be removed from the benefit sponsors would receive. Other than that, it would primarily be the same. Their logos or their information would be part of marketing and advertising materials, both in print and in social media. They would receive individualized banners that would be present at the event. They would be given access to booths for display and communication about their products or services, and they would have their logos included on digital imaging on the screen at select times throughout the festival.
Okay, thanks. And then we're going down to one stage, right? So the community stage used to be the stage where we would showcase local talent. Is the local talent now going to be, I'm hoping it is, moving to the main stage?
So,
because we have a lot of great local bands, and I think that's where we incurred a lot of costs in bringing in these tribute bands. Maybe if we could focus on local bands.
So we're not necessarily committed to removing a second stage. Last year we had a second stage that was a DJ focused stage, so we're thinking that we may continue that. But with the two-day event preliminarily, we've focused on potentially one day being primarily local musician based and the other one being acts that aren't necessarily local based. So we are looking to incorporate local bands and musicians.
Okay, great. That sounds wonderful. I just noticed it was zeroed out, so it looked like it was being eliminated.
Yeah, some of the costs that are zeroed out, it's because we think we've identified ways to do them without costs, more efficient ways to do them.
Okay. And then I have another question regarding the sale of beer and wine. You've zeroed out the tips that are paid to those organizations that sell the beer. I'm hoping that that's not going to happen, because last year that was the only way that they made any kind of benefit or any kind of incentive to participate. That was one of the things that I think was of concern last year, was that they used to be paid to sell beer and wine, these nonprofits, but that was taken away. I'm hoping we can look at ways to put that back, because it's a very highly profitable endeavor to sell the beer and wine. It's one of the highest profit-making ventures from the festival, but to take that away from the nonprofits, I think, was a mistake. So I'd like to see that put back in and allow them to also earn the tips if possible.
I think the thought there was those costs or revenues don't need to be represented in the budget, as it's not an actual event expense or an event's revenue. It would just be funds that would go directly to a group that's supporting the event.
Yeah, it goes back with the general idea of trying to simplify things. In the past, everything would get collected and then divvied and everything else. And for us, on some of these things, like where if we have a nonprofit running a booth, we're going to let the nonprofit run the booth. And so that's where it's going to be making it a little bit easier, but there's no reason for us to then show that as revenue to the city, which it was shown as in the past.
So final question, then I'll let, I'll stop. Will staff be coming back with a plan on implementation? Because, you know, we've went out to RFPs, for RFPs. These organizations submitted plans, but what is the Explorer's plan? What is Henry's plan to implement?
So
what organizational approach is he going to use?
Yeah, so today is getting the approval for us to do it in-house, right? So if we had put together a plan before we had the approval to even do it, it just wouldn't have made sense. So today's getting the approval for us to do it in-house. Once we have that approval, one of the first things we're planning to do is put together a footprint that shows, I think the footprint will answer a lot of questions, and it will show what we're looking to do and what things will be where, and you know, that the VIP area won't be there and that the Cannabis Cove won't be there, but we're going to be doing these things instead. So that would be something that would come back to council.
Okay. Well, you know, to me, it makes sense that there be some plan, because if we ask these businesses to submit a plan, I mean, we should apply the same standards to our own organization to come forth with a plan. That's just my thinking.
Mayor Pro
Thank
Tem, do you
you.
have a question?
No questions, just a comment. I think all of my questions have been answered already. But my comment would be back to what Councilmember Hernandez said about I think we asked in one of our council meetings soon after our last year's beach festival about the cost of labor for the city staff, and we didn't get that. So that is one area that I think that I would like to see, because cost was a big, something we talked about last year about the cost the city was paying for the event. So it would be nice to see those numbers.
I believe that information was presented at the December 18th meeting, but as the city manager indicated, when we do come back with a footprint, some additional information, we'll be sure to include that. Just off the top, the calculated cost for staff support of last year's event was approximately $27,000.
And I think big picture, we didn't want to commit to it at this point because we still need to develop the plan, but we think we can accomplish it for about the same cost. So that was why we didn't show, you know, a cost last year and what we expect the cost to change this year. Our goal is to basically manage it with about the same amount of staff time.
And to the city manager's point, there will be more staff time in the planning phases, clearly, because we're taking on a larger share there. But based on changes we made or are proposing to make to the execution of the event and the footprint of the event and the elimination of parking, there will be less staff time associated with the actual management and on-site for the event.
Less overtime.
Okay, thank you. My apologies if that got by me.
Councilmember Gama.
After participating in the Havana Nights, was it called? I have 1,000% confidence in the Montelongos to manage this event and to exceed our most wild expectations. And I think we as a council should just get out of their way and let them do what they do. If you didn't attend the Havana Nights at the Camarillo Airport, it was an event that was put on by Henry Montelongo, and I have never been to an event so well managed, so professional, and so amazing. So I'm super excited to get out of Henry's way and let him do what he does. And I appreciate the fact that we're already showing $11,000 savings.
And I will add also the June car show they put on every year as well. It's a big success for the city and for the organization. They bring in a lot of money for the Explorers for that event. Are there no further questions? No comments? Councilmember Martinez?
Is there a big push to get the festival on the sand, like on the actual beach, and make it more like a Wainimi Beach festival theme?
yeah, there's a commitment to ensure that some of the activities and events associated with the festival happen on the beach. I won't say the entirety of the festival, but yes, we're looking at opportunities for educational activities as well as athletic competitions on the beach.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to cancel the request for proposals for Wainimi Beach Festival event planning and management services and award no contract. Approve the use of an employee committee to plan and manage the 2024 Wainimi Beach Festival. Authorize a donation of $25,000 to the Port Wainimi Police Explorers to provide services associated with the execution of the 2024 festival, and authorize the city to consider and/or accept in-kind donations in lieu of vendor fees for local nonprofit organizations. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
No further discussion. We will move on to a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to the final business item is the authorize the purchase exempt from formal contract procedure for emergency repair and city sewer main. Will staff please present the report?
Yes, thank you. I wish they were all as fun as Beach Fest, but now we got to talk about a sewer main. So I'll ask Public Works, our team from Public Works to help me, but just a little bit of background is that people probably noticed a couple weeks ago on March 13th, all of a sudden we closed the lane on Ventura Road at the intersection of Ventura Road and Pearl Street. The reason we closed the lane was that we received a report that a sinkhole was developing, and we went out immediately and saw that we had a sinkhole developing. So we jumped into action. We addressed the sinkhole. We repaired the pipe. It was a 60-year-old pipe, which should have lasted 70 to 75 years. So, on one hand, it wasn't quite to its life expectancy, but on the other hand, we should be preparing for 60-year-old pipes starting to fail. I think a lot of our infrastructure is getting to that age. But so we addressed the sinkhole and that issue, but as we were making the repair, we noticed problems along the whole section of the pipe and that it was failing. And so at that time, we got together and we realized we need to replace the entire section of pipe, which I believe is about 4,500 linear feet, basically from Pleasant Valley all the way down Ventura Road to, I think it was Surfside. And we need to replace that whole section. And so we are trying to get that done quickly before we have more issues, before we have a major failure of the pipe, because we can just physically see problems with the pipe. And so we're asking the council to authorize us to purchase to perform the emergency repair by exempting us from our normal formal contract procedures because of the condition of the pipe and the need to make the repair as soon as possible. So I guess I'll ask Public Works, did I miss anything, or we good? Okay. So
good evening. Good
Sorry,
evening,
Fred.
Mayor Pro Tem, council, staff, members of the public. Yeah, City Manager Vega, in a nutshell, got that all accurate. What we need to do, in our opinion, of looking at what happened out there and seeing the adjacent areas that were exposed during the original repair, is that we need to take action to do something with this pipe before we continue to have these problems. We are already in contact with different contractors that specialize. One of the attachment here, attachment A, is a bypass. So we've already started doing a design for that. But it's a draft design because we need to speak to experts that perform this type of work that can confirm what our thought process is, whether that will work or it won't. And the idea behind that is to go ahead and remove all of the flow that's coming down that line, which services the naval base, and also all of the neighborhood from Bryce Canyon to Pleasant Valley in between Jay and Ventura Road. Every one of those businesses and homes runs through that line. So we are in the process already of taking certain actions to make sure that we can try and eliminate this from potentially having other breaks along the way. If you look at attachment A, you'll notice that there are going to be some inconveniences. And again, this is a draft, so some things may change before we actually get into setting this up. But you'll see at Pleasant Valley Road, that's where the point of connections are that we'll have to begin this work at. And then the thought process is to run the above ground bypass line, which would take all of that wastewater that's flowing through the damaged line and run it above ground. We'd be putting K-rail alongside of it. We'd be putting it in the fast lane of southbound Ventura Road. So we would be removing that lane. You'll see there also on the attachment that there's some parking that will be lost because we'll need to take the bike lane in order to turn that into a travel lane. And we're trying to also do the best we can with minimizing blocking the entire cross sections of Ventura Road. But again, we've looked at this. You'll see on B Street, we've got some left turns. So from B Street, it's proposed that they wouldn't be able to make a left turn from B Street onto northbound Ventura Road. Also, similarly, northbound Ventura, you wouldn't be able to make a left across onto B Street. We are trying to keep all of the major streets, cross sections open. Clara, Scott Street, Wainimi Road, all those are proposed to go underground at those areas. The question might be, well, why not put it all underground so you don't have to do any of this? Because that turns into a much more expensive project. And this is a temporary line, so we can go ahead and do the work on the original line and be able to repair all of that without having to place a new line in place. And as you go down on the attachment, you'll see there are other areas. Seaview Street would be affected, leaving out of Surfside Village onto Ventura Road. There are areas that are going to have some minor inconvenience, and we will have some things that will be traffic delays. It's the nature of the project is going to necessarily cause some of these things, but ultimately we think with what we believe on how we can get this done, including this bypass, it will be the least disruptive process to everybody, the public, the port, the base. So with that, if you have any questions, I will answer those.
Director Camarillo, thank you for that. But what I'm hearing in essence is this is a mess. You're going to do your best to fix it. And please be patient. We're asking the community to be understanding and patient while you work as best you can to get this taken care of.
Yeah, that's well said. And the last thing is we'll commit to, we are going to try to get notices out to people at least 72 hours in advance to let people know what's going on so that we don't catch people by surprise. So.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councilmember Gama?
Yeah, I think 60 years for any pipe is probably pretty good, right? I hope so.
Yeah.
And so, Director Camarillo, is it going to be done in sections, or are you? I understand that you're going to have to bypass the entire line, but is it going to be done in sections at a time, or are you going to bypass the whole line and then just start from one end and work all the way to the other end?
Well, it's going to be a combination of both. Part of it will be based on what the final process is that we end up using to do this. Some of them they may be able to do multiple things at a time. So we'll have areas that are opened up in the street that they'll be able to work from. Again, our thought is to try and get this accomplished with the least amount of disruption to traffic and the general public. So we believe that it can be done. We've already started with discussions with people that do this, and they're confident as well, just based off of, again, just talking to them. We haven't had anybody come out on site yet, but we have that set up coming this week, so they can take a tour of the layout, and so they know what they're working with. And we hope to get feedback from them if there's something that we've thought about and they determine that that's probably not the best way to do it. We're looking for them to give us their expertise in this as well.
And I would believe that this is coming out of the enterprise fund, correct? Not the
Correct.
general fund?
Correct, yeah.
Right, and I know that our reserves are quite well over there.
They're well, I wouldn't say quite, but I'm conservative.
They're
but
okay.
They're well, and it's something that we'll keep an eye on and keep watching, and we'll come back if and when we need to deal with that too. So.
Yeah, and I just focus on the positive. 60 years is a long time for any pipe in the ground, and I think, did you say we're going to get 60 years out of this new pipe, or is it new and improved?
Some of the technologies we're looking at, they vary from 60. Some of them go up to over 100 years, depending on what you use.
Who's going to be around?
One of the things we also have to consider, though, is where the alignment of the current pipe is. So some processes may not be amenable to the other field conditions. So that's something else we have to take into consideration when we do this.
You mean you weren't here when they put the pipe in the ground?
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
I've been here a long time, but not that long.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Camarillo, for your staff report, and I especially appreciate the diagram. I find it pretty interesting, contrary to the city manager's comment versus the festival. I actually find it very interesting. I don't know if you said this, but what is the length of time that the project will take?
We're hoping that we can have this done within 2 to 3 months. And again, it'll depend on the process and which one we may be able to use. Some can be done much quicker than others, but there's also some prep work. Obviously, the first line of action is going to be to get the bypass so we can actually start planning to do the work on correcting the line. And then after that, depending on what process we end up ultimately going with, some are a little bit faster than others, but we have a lot of things to do. We got to find out everything else that's underground where we're going to be digging. We have to, work with all the other utilities. There's a lot of work that's going to go into pre-planning before we do anything so we don't cause other damage.
Right.
Hopefully no more surprises.
Yeah, that's, we can expect that, I'm sure. So thank you so much. Good luck.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions? Councilmember Martinez, nothing? All right. Thank you, Director Camarillo. I have full faith in your experience of your team. There were a lot of years on that team, a lot of expertise. So I believe it'll be done appropriately. And 2 months really doesn't sound like a lot of time. All right.
Well, and we're hopeful that it can be a short project, but again, some field conditions will determine what happened ultimately.
So I do have a question, and this is not the only pipeline in our city that's this old. What is the possibility that we have to do this anywhere else? Is there any?
Well, as far as the sewer system goes, and this is the sewer line, we've completed 90% of our master plan from our sewer master plan. So this is really one of the last remaining things that is this big that will need to be addressed as far as the sewer goes. Now, we have other utilities, mainly our water, which does have old lines as well, and they have a master plan in place too, and our water manager is actively pursuing getting those lined up and getting work done for those. So we have other things that are older, but in this case, on the sewer side of things, this is the last one that we have. We do have other projects that are also scheduled to be done, but they aren't as critical as this one is because of the nature of how this works. This takes pumped wastewater from 2 locations and sends it down this line. So to bypass, and if this line were to completely fail, it would be not good.
All right, well, thank you again. Do we have any public comments for this item?
No public comments.
Great. So the recommendation is to authorize purchases exempt from formal contract procedures for the emergency repair of a city sewer force main, authorize the city manager to immediately proceed with performing the necessary preparations and repairs without compliance with the city's normal purchasing ordinance. Staff has determined that the public would be performed, that the work would be to be performed is not a public project as defined by Public Contract Code Sections 2161 Subdivision C, which excludes maintenance and repair from said definition, or determined the purchase of goods, materials, and services are exempt from the city's formal contract procedure pursuant to Port Hueneme Municipal Code Section 2564, Subdivisions B and C as follows. 2564 exemptions from formal contract procedure. B, the city council may authorize purchases of supplies, equipment, and services without complying with this chapter when, in the opinion of the city council, compliance with the procedure is not in the best interests of the city. Or C, the city manager may authorize emergency purchases of supplies, equipment, or services. For the purpose of this chapter, emergency purchases are those procurements required to prevent the immediate interruption of cessation of necessary city services or to safeguard life, property, or the public health and welfare. May I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve all staff's recommendations.
Second.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. No further discussion? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Great. So now I'll move on to city manager comments and reports. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comments or reports?
Just 2 quick items. One, just for planning purposes, our next council meeting, we have 3 items currently scheduled. One will be actually the Measure U Committee's annual report, and they'll explain when they give the report, but it's actually the first ever Measure U Committee annual report. It's something they've been working on for several years to get to this point, and they'll explain that history and the good news that they've gotten to this point. So the Measure U Committee's annual report, our second update related to the upcoming budget, which is going to be having our sales tax consultant come give a presentation on what they're projecting for next year as it relates to our sales tax and how that can impact us. And then third, our second partnership goals discussion. The first one was with the port, and the second one would be with the Navy. And as soon as we got through tonight and we set those items, I'm going to let the Navy know so that they can join us if they choose to do that. So we'll have those 3 items on our next agenda as our business items. And then the only other thing I have is this Friday is our first coffee with the city event, and we're going to do it at Anna Cappuccino at 8:30 a.m. And it will be the first one. We decided to kind of start with the first one being myself, our police chief, and the mayor. Just figuring that typically the first question people ask is for either the police chief or the mayor. People don't know I exist, which is nice. So, so we're going to do the first session this week, this Friday, and we're hoping to do more of these and kind of do a series of them. But the first one is this Friday at Anna Cappuccino. So hope to see everybody there, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
I've had several constituents ask about the schedule for reopening the library. Do you know what the schedule is by any chance?
Yeah, we did get an update on that from the county librarian. I want to say that it was still looking at July, I think, but let me pull that up. I actually have it right here. Right, the update we got 2 weeks ago is that they are currently planning to reopen in June or July. And so that's the latest update from them.
Thank you. Any further questions for City Manager? Thank you. Council member reports and comments. Councilmember Martinez, start with you.
Oh, yes, I just want to mention that now that the nonprofit for the city's housing's done, I spoke to the city attorney. Looks like we're gonna move forward with creating the nonprofit for the sister city. But he just needs a couple details like purpose, basic stuff. Unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to postpone this sister city meeting tomorrow. But that's pretty much it. I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Gama.
So I think all the council members may be aware that there is some controversy going on at the Animal Services Commission. And I thought I would just kind of talk a little bit about that. Because we haven't had a meeting for a while, and I don't quite understand why our meetings are being canceled. But I do understand that there's a big debate regarding euthanizing animals. And the one thing I could say is that the staff there at Ventura County Animal Services are amazing. They take great care of the animals there. And, we tried to adopt a dog, and it didn't turn out very well. And we had to surrender the dog to a very crowded animal services. So if there's anyone out there that has it in them to adopt a dog, consider it. But things are seemingly starting to work out a little better. I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to make contact with the chair, Supervisor Levere, and see when we're going to get on track to another meeting so that we could see what's going on. So that's it.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, just came back from Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago. Was it a couple of weeks already? Great trip. I would like the opportunity to report more out on that at our next meeting. I didn't come very prepared, but I did submit a write-up for the newsletter along with pictures for the city manager to include in our upcoming newsletter. I know that you asked for highlights, Mr. City Manager, but it was really hard to highlight our visits without leaving somebody out. So I did the best, Martha and I did the best we could to summarize the trip. So hopefully that will meet the needs of the newsletter. I've got a SCAG meeting this week I'll be attending in downtown Los Angeles. The port tour that was scheduled for Friday has been canceled due to weather. I guess we're expecting some rain again this Friday. We almost canceled the mural committee meeting on Friday due to weather, but it's back on. So we'll be able to report back to the council after that meeting is held and give you an update on where we are with the mural, the library mural. Other than that, I would have a few staff and agenda requests, but other than that, I think I'm good.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Hernandez mentioned the RDP trip that we did to DC. I just want to take just a quick moment. Like she said, we did have a summary that we turned over to the city manager. I just wanted to give our residents an idea just of some of the offices that we visited so that you know. We saw the minority leader for the House Armed Services Committee. We visited the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy. We visited Commander Naval Installation, who's the commander of all U.S. naval installations. We visited, so I came back after 2 days. There was a third day that I missed. On the third day, the team visited Senator Alex Padilla's office, the advisor for Defense, Foreign Affairs, and Veterans, Congresswoman Brownlee's office, and Congressman Ken Calvert's office. So we did, I think we visited, at least the 2 days I was there, the Pentagon 3 times. I think you all went on the third day as well. And so I think we did our due diligence as a committee to see as many people as we possibly could. And I think we came back with some additional information on ways that we can, or avenues by which we can probably use to support infrastructure. And that's one of the biggest things that I came back with. So we had a great trip, and I think it's going to be value added for the committee and what we're going to be able to, how we're going to be able to support Naval Base Ventura County, both up Port Hueneme and Point Mugu. Other than that, I'll be attending. I have 3 committee meetings this week, so I'll be attending those, and hopefully have something additional to report next meeting.
Thank you. I have 2 committee meetings this week, so I have nothing to report on any of the committees. The Easter celebration was very well done. I want to thank staff for putting that together, and I want to thank the future members of the Hueneme Lions Club who came in to help provide some much-needed support in setting up that event, because we were a bit short-staffed, and I want to thank the facilities who came in to help at the end of taking away all the K-rails that were way too heavy for us girls to be carrying away. We will move on now to requests for future agenda items. I'd like to remind council members that all requested items will require a motion, a second, and majority vote per adopted council policies to be placed on a future agenda item. Councilmember Martinez, I will start with you. No agenda items?
Not today.
Councilmember Gama.
Yes, we got some bad news from Washington that they cut our dredging budget in half, and I think we need to get this on the agenda so that we could all talk about it as a council. So I'm looking for a second to put.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Mayor, may I digress and go back to an event announcement, which I forgot to
Of course.
mention. The memorial for Pedro Valdez is going to occur again this year on April 19th. It's not a city-sponsored event. It's going to be sponsored by the Ventura County Resource Center, by our Lamont Hayes, who's here in the audience, and it will be taking place at the gazebo on Surfside versus the bike station. Last year, the bike station was the focal point, but we don't want to block traffic, bicycle traffic, so we're going to move over to the gazebo, and that'll start at 4 o'clock and end at 5, and I will be moderating the program, and we'll have the pleasure of the mayor also providing a few words. And so everybody's welcome to attend. Again, it starts at 4 o'clock, April 19th. With regards to agenda requests, I meant to mention this at our last meeting, but forgot, and that is David Marin has offered to do a presentation on the state of the region from the Civic Alliance. And for some of you who've not seen the book that was published through the Civic Alliance, it's a great resource book on our demographics. Everything from agriculture to community statistics are included in the book, and I think that it would be beneficial for our community as well as our city council to hear. So I'd like to ask for a second to have him come and speak to our council in a future meeting. Anybody? Not interested?
You moved? Second. You
Okay.
moved? Okay, great.
Thank you. The other request I have. Oh, sorry.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
The other request I have is not well, maybe it is an agenda request, but it has to do with updating our policy and procedures to include information on working with the press and defining what constitutes a city-sponsored event. So do we need to discuss that as an agenda item, or can we just direct the city attorney to update our policies and procedures?
I think the appropriate deal would be to address it as an agenda item should council determine that it needs to be amended and come back.
Okay, very good.
Is there a second? Seeing.
Oh, the motion was to update the policies and procedures to address how to work with the media, do's and don'ts of working with the media, and also to better define for council members what constitutes a city-sponsored event.
I second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
May I ask a question? Are we going to look at the entire manual, or are we just going to look at these two items?
Seems specific that it's just pertaining to these two items.
Yeah, well, I would like to amend the motion and add council member behavior as something having to do to how council members are supposed to stay out of personnel actions. I mean, if we're going to look at the policy manual, we should look at the whole thing.
Without getting into discussion, we can agendize an item for council to essentially discuss any potential amendments they need for the council policy and procedures manual.
Okay.
Is that going to be your amended motion?
I think I can just bring that.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to finish the vote because it potentially looked like there was two that were about to say no. So I will just do a roll call real quick. Councilmember Gama?
Shall we restate so now the motion has been amended, is that it?
Oh, we voted on it.
We didn't complete voting.
If there's a second on the amended motion for basically to review and revise the council policy manual as appropriate based on council direction, do we have a second on that?
I second.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Gama? Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem McQueen LeJean?
Yes.
And Mayor Perez?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Martinez voting no.
Any other future agenda items? No?
No, but I'd like to apologize. I forgot to mention the museum committee. We did have a working group meeting this past Saturday that got canceled due to rain. So we'll be coming back together on April 19th. I believe that's the date for a meeting Friday 19th, I think. Anyway, we'll report back. The museum has been, the work from the facilities folks, they've turned it back over. And so I haven't been in it, but I've seen some pictures. It looks really good. So we're excited about starting to be able to go back in and do the work to get it prepared. So we'll report again after the meeting.
All right, so seeing no other future agenda items, then I would like to adjourn this meeting. Had there be nothing else? Okay, next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 15th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned. The time is 9:02.